what would you want to share with the church? If whether it be River of Life specifically or the church in general, what comes to mind?
Well, I was reading something in the Gospel of Mark, and it comes from chapter 7, and it begins at verse 5 of the chapter. I'll read this text, and I'll give you my thoughts about this.
Okay.
Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, "Why walk not the disciples according to the traditions of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands?" And he answered and said unto them, "Well hath Isaiah prophesied of you hypocrites, as is written, This people honoreth me with their lips, but the heart is far from me. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold the traditions of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such things ye do." And he said unto them, "Full well ye reject the commandments of God, that ye may keep your own traditions. For Moses said, Honor thy father and thy mother, and whosoever curses thy father and mother, let him die the death. But ye say, If a man shall say to his father or mother, It is Corban, that is to say, a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be glorified by me, he shall be free. And ye suffer him no more to do aught for his mother or father, making the word of God of none effect through your traditions, which ye have delivered, and many teach the things do ye." Many such things they teach. I ask myself, what's the difference today between the Pharisees and the scribes of that particular period? I could be cynical and say the only difference is we drive faster chariots and wear different tokens. Because man's heart is the same. Man wants to exalt himself. And if I were to use the old archaic phrase, I call them cobblers. That's a manufacturer of shoes. The Pharisees were cobblers. They were taking the word of God to make the shoe fit. And they didn't want to submit themselves to the commandments of God. And there's an interesting word when he calls them hypocrites. That's a twofold word in the Greek language, so I understand. The hypocrites, the word meant one who speaks under a mask, or one who is an actor. And he will not show who he is. He wants you to see who you think he is, but who he hides behind a mask. They're hiding behind their spirituality, their religious emphasis. They're saying, if I say Corban, the Pharisees had an edit in their law that you could say it was Corban. That means it was a gift. They could give it to the temple and not have to give it to their parents. And so they would get credit for their posterity, but yet they put it in their own pocket. To free them from that curse was that exalt man, and man wants credit. Man wants society is not only taking God out of the picture, our society has, in a sense, buried God. God is not effective in our society. There are a remnant of few that are actually wanting the Spirit of God to teach them what the Word of God says, as opposed to following what their denominational campground tells them to believe. Let the Word of God be effective and forget the man. Take the man out of the picture. It says in Acts chapter 17, when Paul was on Mars Hill talking to the readers, he said that God does not dwell in temples made with hands, and God doesn't need your help and my help. God will accomplish his mission. We need to submit ourselves to God. That's what I would say to the church today. There's so much non-unification, so much disunity in our church today because of all the denominational persuasion.